Yeah.
Okay, go.
Hello everyone. Thank you very much to everyone who has decided today to join to our third international digital table. Today we have like about 200 people who have subscribed in this digital table that we will do today. And right now we have like already 60, 70 people coming. So welcome to everyone. And we expect that everyone will be joining in the next minutes. Just to summarize or to make you remember the ones that you might connect for the first time in these LAMP digital tables. Well, this is our third one. We always talk about the same matter, which is called evolution and transformation of architecture in this post-crisis society. And in our first digital table, it was focused on Spanish architects, and we had a very interesting debate there. Then in our second digital table, it was around 5 lighting designers, in that case based in South America. And this time we decided to make it a bit more challenging. So this third table, we are having experts from all around the world. That's why it's our first round table, not in Spanish and in English. And we have experts from Bangkok to Dubai, Barcelona, London, Middle East in general. And we really believe that it's going to have a complete different focus, okay, because of the way of being spread all over the world. I'm sure that this is going to give us a global perspective of how we are all living these changes on our societies worldwide, because as probably it's one of our first times that we are living kind of a worldwide pandemic or crisis, let's say. Okay, and also we have a second interesting challenge in this digital table, that for the first time we are combining different experts. So we are joining architects, but also lighting designers. And we are asking them to really come on interesting subjects that we will drive through some questions. But the thing that we always ask to the experts who decides to participate with us is really to come on these digital tables, you know, with a honest opinion, to not be really political correct, and to really bring issues on the table, and that really can, you know, help to everyone listening in the reflections. Okay, so so I'm sure because of the profile of the people that we have, that this will happen today. So very briefly, let me introduce you the experts of today's digital table. So we have Professor Chanya Porn, based in Bangkok, Thailand. She's the director of the Lighting Research and Innovation Center from the School of Architecture of King Mongkut University of Technology, Thunburi. So thanks and welcome, Professor Chanya Porn. We also have Juan Ferrari, okay, a senior associate director at Horea Lee, based in London, the UK. Regina Santos, she is associate and head of the specialist lighting design at Godwin Austen Johnson, based in Dubai. So welcome, Regina. We have also Mohammed Adib, chief design director at Diwan Architects and Engineers, founder and owner of Intercom. Mohammed is based between Barcelona and Dubai, and today he's in Dubai. Within the lockdown too. And Anna Bassat, okay, Anna, she's an architect at B720 from Vasquez Architects, a founding partner, and she's based in Barcelona. So welcome to everyone. And I'll just give the word to Fernando. This time the digital table will be dynamized by Fernando Monge. She's LAMP's director at Asia Pacific, and he's also based in Bangkok. So thanks to everyone. Thanks everyone for being connected, and let's go on, Fernando. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ignacy, and thank you to all our speakers today, and welcome to the third roundtable about evolution and transformation of architecture in a post-crisis society. In previous talks, we shared ideas and visions from architects and lighting designers working from Spain and Latin America. Today, we are lucky to come with well-known professionals from London, Barcelona, Dubai, and Bangkok. And it's going to be very interesting to see all these potential changes from all these different backgrounds. We are going to be talking about how the current health crisis might have an impact on urban spaces, residents, and public spaces. This will take us around 50 minutes, plus of course, we will be giving additional times later to answer all the questions from our viewers in YouTube. So please write down your questions and we will answer that later. Let's start. In previous roundtables, we spoke about rethinking spaces and wondered whether the current situation would be a catalyst for trends that were already in the table or a starting point for new trends. When referring to urban spaces, two of those trends were the recovery of urban environment for pedestrians, and second was how cities were taking a holistic approach to sustainability. Anna, what opportunities do you think are presented when it comes to rethink urban spaces from an architectural point of view?
Well, thank you, Fernando. I think there are not that many things we have learned from this pandemic that we didn't know before. So perhaps we have learned one big thing out of it, is that we probably suspected it, is that we were not prepared for it. This tends to happen to us. We are typically not prepared for the big earthquake, the big fire, flood. But when it comes, we learn to cope with it. Probably it would have been a lot worse. We will probably be better prepared for the future. But I think we already knew, and it was that we have a problem with affordable housing. Not everybody lives in a type of home that we all aspire to. So we knew we could learn from the distance as well. We knew we could learn from lectures, and it's probably the best way to learn. But we now experienced it with having all our young ones learning from the distance, learning from home. We also knew we could work from home. We did it in the past, we've done it, but now we've all tried to work, but not everybody wants to work from home or can work from home or have the best home to be able to work from it. This has been a huge experiment. We've learned lots of things because this experiment is, we've been experimenting things we already knew we could do, but we've been forced to do. I think our cities are a good place to live, and we want to live together. But the density has shown as a problem in this with this pandemic. Although density is the way provides so many more opportunities for a better life. Density is the way to reduce the resource consumption. Density improves our efficiency, but it implies problems of contamination. Living in cities has also the problem with noise, with disease, something we've seen in these past months with this lockdown, how the city can be a place with no contamination, no noise. Well, the disease has been the problem when we were in a lockdown. But we have to deal with all these issues. But I think we are on the right track. We were already on the right track, but probably we've been precipitating some of these things that we knew we had to improve. I think that reducing the amount of vehicles on the streets, increasing the amount of pedestrian space, changing the way we move around, all that was already happening, but probably not at the right pace. Who knows? It's probably due to economics, to political, financial systems. But I think this experience may be very positive. The one thing that troubles me is that I think we don't have to address our situation as we were for the future, as we were always going to be in an emergency situation. We need to be prepared, but cannot modify our lives as if we were always going to be in a pandemic situation. As if we didn't change it with earthquakes, we didn't stop building high buildings, but we learned how to deal with high buildings and earthquakes. So I think with this pandemic, we have to also learn how to deal with it, but not change our lives completely. We cannot go back and reconsider things that we know are not sustainable. We cannot all live in detached houses surrounded by a garden with a big car in the front door, a big pool. It's not feasible. It's not even desired. I think the future is in our cities, and we have to deal and work to improve our lives in the cities. I would mention things that are already happening in Europe, like in this experiment and this La Ville du Quart d'Heure in Paris. This is this project for the city of Paris, where everything needs to be happening in this 15-minute city, where every citizen can live and do and work and do this shopping and go to cultural places and for healthcare, everything within a 15-minute ride by bicycle or a 15-minute walk. So it's this multiple uses in one neighborhood. And this experiment, I think this is the way we're going to evolve, and probably this is how the future is going to be going in all the cities in the world. And probably in Europe we'll be leading this experiment, and it's probably in the right track.
Okay, thank you. Well, that's very interesting to have this 15 minutes walk. And well, as a matter of fact, now we have seen that we can pretty much, I mean, many people, we can work from home. And we are also reducing the carbon footprint by reducing transportation. And as far as lighting is concerned, we are worried probably too much. We've been worried too much about reducing consumption, but we haven't been worried about reducing gasoline consumption and so on. Mohammed, what do you think? Which opportunities can you see?
I think, I mean, first of all, I agree totally with Anna's assessment. The thing is that the COVID problem as it is, I mean, it is none of the problems that we're having now we didn't have before, as far as social housing or socioeconomics of the cities. I think we should sort of take a bit the good things that we learned from the situation, mainly the fact that people adapted to a new way of living, a new way of interacting in a very, very quick way. I think, as Anna was saying, I mean, cities definitely will not disappear. I mean, hearing people that now, because you can work remotely, you'll all go in the countryside and live alone. This doesn't work. I mean, really, the city is a very, very important thing, and it will always be there. So the problems that we had are still here. The solutions we have to take from the way that people have reacted to that, be it with work, be it with social part of the living. And I think an important thing is that we're talking about the 15-minute or the thing is it's a scale issue. I think if we start thinking of bigger groups but divided into subgroups, so I mean organically it does happen in a way. You know, you have your area, and you live in that area, you work in that area, you interact with smaller businesses in that area. That I think it's the future for what I would like to see in city living. You know, yeah. I mean, we're still in city. You have all the grand important aspects of a city, but you're moving within a small area which is controlled, which you can walk to your neighbors, to the shop, to your office. I think that is more of a tendency, and one of the things that we've discovered, I mean, as a company, you know, that the way of working remotely, we already had several offices around the world, so it was happening a bit. But I think that the main change now is that the clients are accepting that as well. You know, the clients are not so insistent on a meeting tomorrow to discuss something. You can have a way of working remotely, a meeting online. And this is, for me, it's a very positive thing in that you can start getting the right talent for a specific project. You know, if we are working and the best lighting designer is in New York for a project that is in Dubai, it's very easy. You know, it's very easy now. It's not like before that everyone had to be here. This is I think it's the major positive point that we could get out of this new way of working. Till now, everyone is talking about working remotely, hot desks, smaller offices and all that. But really, this is something that the clients and the decision makers have become to accept that. And I think that is a step further to break up the bigger scale of a density into smaller areas, and that would make it work.
Okay, I think Anna had something to say.
Yes, well, I completely agree with Mohamed with this, the clients accepting it, and it's probably the first step, because it's not only a matter of having to travel in the city or having to travel between cities, but you probably has happened to you to take a plane for a 45-minute meeting with a client. This has happening to us too often. And it's not always easy to convince the client that you can have this meeting through one of these platforms. And probably after the pandemic, this will be a big change, and we will avoid evitable. I mean, I think we'll avoid this kind of very short trips for a 1 hour meeting. It doesn't make any sense to take a plane for a 1 hour meeting. And this is probably one of the changes I think will occur from that.
And when it comes to urban planning, would you say that it would be a big change when planning the city with less transportation and less space for cars? Well, this is already a trend that was already taking place. I mean, but when it comes to public transportation, it's going to be that massive, or it's going to be more towards pedestrian?
Well, I think it will be a change as well, but not as big as the one I was talking before. I think there will be also a big change on collective public transport, and we will increase the public transport, not collective. I'm talking about all these kind of new gadgets that we use, and we'll see more bicycles and more individual vehicles. But yeah, this is going to change. But I think one of the big changes will come in these absurd long trips for a very short meeting.
Okay, well, thank you, Anna. Professor Chanjaporn, how do you see these two trends and how they will impact into lighting design in urban spaces?
I totally agree with Anna and Mohammed. We have seen this trend too. A colleague of mine who's from another urban design center here in Bangkok, they're also talking about, focusing on smaller neighborhood. And maybe the circle they're talking about is like, say, 800 meters, radius that you can walk. Well, here is hot and humid, right? So the walking distance is not as far as, in Europe. And actually even before the crisis, there's been a project in Bangkok. They're trying to, a project called, I think it's called Good Walk. So they're talking about, like walking distances in like in CBD, but it's a residential area, like Thong Lo area in Bangkok. You must know that. Yeah, so now it's even, increasingly more important, and I think we seeing that there's a need, for that. And within that small neighborhood, what people need is, like small parks, right? And well, food in Bangkok is not a problem, but of course, parks, markets, and some nice pavements. And my dream would be like bicycle track. Distance. I think in Bangkok you already have small neighborhoods, small enough, right? But it will be like safety issues that I don't cycle, on the road. But I heard and I saw example in Vienna or in somewhere in Europe that they already set up temporary, wider bicycle path. So I think that's already changes in that people are using less of public transport. At the moment I'm not using taxis. I'm not taking the SkyTrain at the moment. So well, it's a semester break, so I can work from home. But I really think that now the scale would come down to pedestrian scale, and I think it would be nice for lighting. This month, in Bangkok, we're going to have a new sky park across. It will be the first park, pedestrian bridge across the river in Bangkok. So, we're trying to push for this, pedestrianized bridges or waterfront area. And I think for lighting, you will see more of lighting at a human scale. Something that you don't need to talk about, like high pole or things like that. So I think in terms of opportunities for the cities, to see something more intimate feeling in the cities, that would be nice. And in terms of the sustainability, I think there's a lot of talk about smart city. So I'm hoping, when things become in a smaller scale, in a, people, walking street kind of scale, that smartness, it can really be integrated into the lighting design, right? So I believe that, before you going smart, you need to have a good lighting design first, and then you can have all connected lighting you want. And now when it comes to like pedestrianized area, so I think that lighting can really respond to, it can be adaptive lighting that you can also integrate with other sensors if need to. So I think yeah, so I think that there are many possibilities for lighting designers to work in the cities.
Thank you very much, Professor. Regina, any inputs about the impact on lighting design? What do you think?
Well, yes, the impacts are several, actually, mostly on the residential area. I would believe that now we are like, we have been, most of us enclosed in the house space, and then we are dealing with the situation as is, like the atmospheres that we have at home, that sometimes we spend very little time in our residential environments. So in the end, the color rendition is an issue today. The lights that we have today are issues as well. And so we have several points. For example, when you're cooking your food, if you have a good color rendition, that you can see actually the food, that the food is not greenish, that you can see that things are properly, that the color of your food is accurate, is appropriate, and that when you look yourself in the mirror as well, that you can see your face, and you can see your own complexion. Today, what I see is that in the urban environment, we're using a lot of cold light, and the cold light that we see, we are being exposed. It's affecting our circadian rhythm as well. And I don't think that the lighting is being properly addressed to our beings as a whole. For example, when we go to an outdoor space, to a park, are those spaces are those spaces considering how we are interacting with others and how the light is affecting us in the long term? So in the end, uh, when what we're talking about COVID today, that we are very much into ourselves and inside ourselves, and we are isolated from people, and I believe we are eager to reconnect with other people. And this connection today is a bit broken in a way. We look forward to seeing people again and to interacting with people again. And how is the COVID impacting us? I believe that in every aspect, we are more afraid to go out. We're looking at light to kill bacteria, to actually um, keep the bacteria from spreading. But how is that working? Is that harmful to us? Is that being the studies today? Some of the lights that are being used in the urban environments, not urban environment, the hospitals and for public transportation, even to kill bacteria. Some of them are actually harmful to any living being. So they cannot be used today in the public environment properly. We're talking about UV. How can we address UV in an office space at nighttime to actually kill the bacteria? The problem is not only at nighttime, but when we are together again. Now people are afraid to interact with each other. So there are friends even that you talk to each other, but you keep the distance. You're wearing a mask, and it's not that the space has been sanitized, but you're actually afraid to have that contact. So what I believe is that how can we use lights to bring people to have this sense of connection, with one another? So it's a little bit delicate in a way, because the atmosphere, the way we're trying to use light, not in an engineering way, but in the way to create a space that you can feel safe, that you can feel in harmony with one another. And so these are points that I have considered a lot. There are a lot of people that are depressed today because of COVID, and that how are we actually addressing that? So this is why I mentioned the residential aspect before, is because yes, we are at home, and we are seeing maybe many aspects that we have neglected from when we were actually going out, going to work, and we spend so much time busy outside that then we come home and we're restricted to a space, and we need to look more deeply into it. So there are so many trends in the internet. Oh, improve your training and work, learn more things. And in the end, all of these trends, like sometimes we get overloaded also with information. We all want to work faster, to be more efficient, more productive. And the way that light can help us in that is like, okay, is the lighting appropriate to the activities that we're doing? Today, at least in the commercial aspects of lighting are also very important, because the majority of the population, they don't have the knowledge of lighting. They go to a supermarket to replace a lamp bulb. And then you find, if you have a bad lamp there that you buy, and people that don't know actually the color temperature, the difference between color temperatures, then they might just buy whatever is in front of them, like the first one that actually has the right lamp base. And then when you put that at home, then you see, oh, the color temperature is different. So how can we make lighting more democratic for the people that don't have a lighting background? So there are several aspects that I think that needs to be considered. How can we bring that knowledge to the end user? How can we help all spaces, the residential spaces and other spaces, to be more lighting driven, and not only based on the commercial aspect of VE, okay, we need to cut down cost, but actually implement the quality. Okay, a color rendition is important in your kitchen so you see your food properly. It is important for you to see yourself and see yourself healthy and not with a grayish tint to your face. But so these are points that I believe that it's about bringing light, this knowledge more to the end user, and how can we implement that in the projects. I don't know if it makes sense. I hope it's clear.
Thank you very much, Regina. Indeed, and now we are going to start talking about residents. Before that, just a quick reminder, please drop all your questions and we will go through there. I'm referring to all our viewers in YouTube. We will go through them later. So we are going to now move forward to residents, and well, working remotely has been the norm under the current circumstances. Discovering an increasing need for more flexible spaces with soft boundaries, allowing us to do different activities in the same room, from working to cooking or whatever. In previous roundtables, it was highlighted that corporate spaces can somehow guarantee a certain degree of ergonomics. Regina, since you are there, what do you think would be the most appropriate way to ensure ergonomics and the importance of adequate lighting in residential spaces, or to promote these ergonomics only in office spaces? You almost answered this question already because you were saying about bringing all this knowledge to people, but anyway, anything you would like to add?
Yes, the ergonomics is basic. Like ergonomics started basically in the Industrial Revolution, when you had like equipments that were not fit for a person. So people had to have their arms raised and they didn't have the right movements. And then you start injuring yourself because of that. Even in an office space today, you need to look into your posture and how, if you're well sitting, so that you don't harm yourself. Like, especially in an architectural practice, sometimes we have papers in front of us and we tend to move the keyboard up to the front, and then when we see our shoulder is to the front, and then we tend to bring like harm to our shoulders, and like we have several points of that we end up being ill from not having the right posture, from not having the correct way of behaving. So ergonomics is extremely important. And in the residences today, I believe we have to address, okay, everyone needs a space to sit down and use a computer. Computer today is a reality. So this needs to be integrated, and the ergonomics is about the quality of your chair, the height of your table, how that is working to the benefit of the person that is using them. But then as well, the lighting. Today you have color changing. We're talking about circadian lighting, and I'm also wondering, in a space like the Middle East, or like some countries that are closer to the equator, that you have like more sunlight and more daylight contribution. How is the circadian actually working for you during the daytime? So the color temperatures today are one point that I question a lot. Like, for example, some studies say, okay, we need 5,000 Kelvin in the offices or 4,000 Kelvin in the offices, but most of the studies are talking about Nordic countries and not countries that are more exposed to sunlight. So I believe we need more research. I believe we need more studies to show how lights is affecting us in different regions, and not only on the regions where you're more sun deprived, because in the end, you do need to have at least in the end of the day, a more warm color temperature so that you can tone down and be ready to sleep when that comes, and not be so out of sync with your own circadian rhythm. So the color temperature that I mentioned before is another point, because this is highly disregarded, especially, I believe, on the lights and the lamps that are provided to the general population. So these are points that I have questioned a lot. How can we create a home environment that is more cozy, that is more welcoming? And do we want the color change? Do we want the tunable white? The technology is there, but there's a cost to it, and the commercial aspect is extremely important today that has been driving the value engineering on most of the projects. So how can we balance that and provide a good solution? So these are all questions that I bring to every project, because we do need to provide what is good to the end user as well, not only being like what within the cost estimate that we have, what can we provide that is the best quality within that cost target that we all have. So, but at the same time, people do want simplicity. We have all the technology there, but how to balance all the trends and all the different technologies that are available to a level of simplicity that is easy for the end user to actually tackle and use on a daily.
Yes, indeed. And actually, I mean, democratizing good lighting design for residents is one of the pending things in the industry, I guess, because nowadays, at least from what I can see, most of the residents with good lighting are for like high-income households. So we should, in a way, try to democratize all this. Juan, you are still there. Anything to add, please?
Yeah, I have the pleasure of listening to all of my colleagues first, so it's quite easy then to pick up on all of the things that they said. In regards to the first question that was there, floating out there in terms of COVID and how we are learning from it, I think that we will learn once we are actually out of the storm. We are currently in a storm, and you don't learn during your storm. You apply yourself during the storm, and then you learn for the next storm. I think that that picks up very much on what Anna was explaining very clearly before. We will know what this COVID-19 will teach us afterwards, and surely we will go back to our human nature to be able to reconnect with people and be humans and have that particular thing that humans have, that be able to be together. Picking up on the question regarding home office and home and office in some way, the two places that we're talking about at the moment, and the ergonomics of what to change what are we changing? Are we changing the home, or are we changing the office, or are we changing both in order to accommodate this new reality that we are living through? I think the word ergonomics resounds me in a kind of itchy way. The etymology of the word already is quite controversial. It's basically it's a Greek word, and ergon means work, and nomos means rule, the rule of work. So we're treating ourselves as machines, and actually I don't really buy into treating myself as a machine. I think that the magic of the office space has died. It's dated. The fact of people feeling glamorous when going to the office and drinking a whiskey and smoking a cigar in your office, and that has gone, and it's more of a place. And office is like a bad word now, and it's like a battery chicken farm, and it's really not very engaging as a word. And that's why we started actually calling our workspaces ateliers or workshops or any word that we can find except for office, really. And I think that in previous conversations within this forum, there were some very interesting notes from architects saying exactly that, saying, well, really, when we start actually giving adjectives or names to places, we start actually failing the flexibility that the space has. So going back to myself on what the experience of home office or office and what would I change. Not that long ago, about a week ago, we did a survey within our company and asking people if they wanted to return to work and when and in which conditions where they would return to work. And funny enough, most of the people said that they would like to return or spend 50% of their time in their houses working from home and 50% in their office. So they don't want to leave the office. So I started in preparing for this, I started actually thinking, what is attractive from the office? We have a lovely office in central London. It's full of bars and restaurants around it. It's full of very creative people and other companies around us, which feeds us, and the interaction there is quite beautiful. I have to commute an hour to work. I don't like that bit, but I kind of put myself into my own little private world. I do some work while traveling, and I'll get to the office, and then I'm in this really, really nice place. The office also has plenty of daylight, and it's a really nice place where to work. We work in a very beautiful place. Now, what is attractive from my house? I can actually put my laptop wherever I want. I can take any break that I want. I can dress however I want. I will actually dress up for a video conference like this, but apart from that, I can do whatever I want. And actually, the office side of things that we hate is the lack of freedom. And the thing that we like about the office is the interaction with other people. I have interactions with my family, and it's fine, but we're only 5. We're not hundreds and thousands, and we can actually look at each other and bounce ideas. We are kind of constrained there. So if we are talking about benefits, or what would I change in terms of lighting, I think I would change both things, and the things that I would bring into freedom. What gives us freedom in lighting terms? What daylight gives us freedom in lighting terms. So not being restricted to the place where you work, as in physical place where you work, gives you freedom. Being able to connect with daylight, go closer to a window. I'm actually in front of a window now, and I have a massive skylight in the office above me, and I enjoy that. The only thing that I don't enjoy is the same thing that I didn't enjoy when I was a kid, which is direct sunlight. It just gets me. It always gets me. I don't like direct sunlight. I don't like the glare of direct sunlight. I don't like direct sunlight and the heat of direct sunlight. But I adore daylight, and therefore, one of the things that we need to build in the new offices, or whatever you want to call them, in your atelier, is the possibility to being able to come outside, be connected with the external environment, be connected to daylight. Another thing that brings freedom is flexibility. We are all very flexible now. We have, I don't know, I'm grabbing my mobile phone. You have a mobile phone, you move from one place to the other, you have a tablet, you have a laptop that you connect, disconnect. I can go, well, before COVID, I could go and actually speak with Mohammed in the Middle East, or go and visit Anna in Barcelona, and I take a plane. I'm very mobile, and we have that. And I don't think that we want to lose that. We want to lose that from a sustainable perspective. We need to find more sustainable ways of traveling, but I like that connection with people. And the third thing would be, in a very pure lighting terms, is controls, is being able to control your own environment, being able to set up lighting in whatever way you want to set it up. In whatever color temperature you want to set it up, in whatever intensity you want to set it up. And if we could start actually changing finishes, is probably more a question for the architects on this forum. If we can actually have flexible finishes, that would be fantastic. I would like to sit down in a dark room one day and in a white room the next day on. As long as you give me a white box or a black box, then we can actually do whatever we want. And that is flexibility, and that's freedom. One of the things that we learned from all this COVID thing, or the thing that we learned, is that we're not stuck with one thing. We came out of the chicken battery farm, that's what I'm trying to say, and we came out to freedom. And I think that is kind of an important concept. Hopefully, we won't go back to the chicken battery farm office-like scenario. We will have a little more freedom of where and how we work. Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, that's fine. That was brilliant. Thank you very much, Juan. And actually, it's also related to previous talks where some of the speakers were giving also solutions, such as rather than working from home or adding one more room to your home, why not having an additional room within the condominium? So that room could be, an office room, pretty much very similar to what service apartments or hotels, they have a business suite. That would be also ideal in a way, because at the end we also need to break down the activities that we do. We have cooperative activities, we have focus activities, and so on. So it's very interesting. Anybody would like to add anything to this residence point, or we move forward to the next one? Okay, Regina, please.
What I found interesting about this and the other discussions as well is that it's not only about lighting, but it's about everything, how we are reacting to the spaces that we are under the current circumstances. So in the architectural point of view, acoustics is also one of them. because we have so much noise around us. Like today, there are so many studies about, okay, we want altered states of consciousness so that we can be more creative, so that we can be more productive, so that we can be more timeless, like, you know, like be free of the constraints of time. So noise is one of them. The acoustic aspects of the homes today, where we're hearing the construction site around us and the neighbors with the loud TV. So we are very close to each other today. We have walls between us, but we are very, you know, we're compact on the same building in the same space. And it's good also if this could be more integrated and better addressed, so that we can have more rest as well. We can have a kind of peace in our own space that we can actually focus. And I don't know if this makes sense to the rest of you, but especially when you're in lockdown, you're hearing everybody else around you. And you know, how the acoustic aspect is integrated in all of this is an interesting point.
It is interesting. Thank you very much. Okay, we move forward to the next question. Public spaces with high density of people, such as shopping centers, shopping malls, sport venues, are expected to suffer certain changes, not only at this very short term due to the healthy reasons, but also due to a potential change in people's behavior and how they want to interact to such a space. Mohammed, in your opinion, how these spaces will be planned? What changes can you foresee?
I think first we need to separate a bit the shopping centers and the sporting venues. I think that the sporting venues, it's other factors probably. I mean, if Barcelona playing Madrid in the final of the Champions League and it's there's a typhoon and crocodiles in the stadium, I'll still go to the to the game. So that's when we don't think with our head, we think with other things. So shopping centers, I think that the healthy thing, we should not sort of overreact to the COVID in a specific way. You know, COVID, it's a big problem. It's an airborne transmitted disease. For all we know, the next one could be a light transmitted disease. So I mean, we're not going to start designing buildings without windows just for that. I think that the problems with the shopping centers existed before, and they were suffering already the impact of the scale that they offer, the sort of lack of identity, and also their sort of standardization. You know, I think that this is a big thing, and of course the online shopping, which has really affected them. So shopping centers, I think that there's two direct impacts about them. It's the short term and the long term. I think the short term till I would call it short term till the sort of a vaccine is found for COVID, or till we all get it and we're all immune. It's just sort of how they can manage to keep going in this situation. I really don't know. I mean, I've been listening to other opinions and things like that. They have to adapt. They have to adapt. They have to offer something new, something that interests people a bit more. I think it's a bit late in to redesign them now. But definitely replanning them is something to offer, maybe using the big spaces that they have. I mean, I think one of the malls is doing like a drive-in cinema in the car park. You know, something like that is quite nice. You know, trying to use the huge square meters of space that they have to try and give it another use where you're still sort of protected in your car. You can drive to the car park, pick up your food from sort of stations, contactless stations, and then go and watch a movie or something like that. As a longer term thing, as the future of shopping malls, I think definitely, I mean, in the last few years, the tendency has been more sort of neighborhood malls and sort of more lifestyle malls. So they're more open, they're more, it's basically the old European or Asian street corner kind of atmosphere. I think this is more exciting for the users, because one, the scale is more sort of controllable. You don't sort of get in a building that you get lost every time you get there. But also it's a bit more identity. You know, it's like in London, you know, you go to your corner shop, he knows your name, you buy the newspaper in the morning while you're going to work. It's a personal thing which people like this kind of contact. The other thing, I mean, with the existing ones, how these could be redesigned. I think a lot more sort of pop-up kind of shops need to appear. I think the sort of the idea of the big Inditex kind of shops, the huge shops that have a whole floor. I think, I mean, I haven't been there maybe in 5 years. You know, I don't go to these places. It's just, I feel uncomfortable because of the scale and because of the idea. So, but if there's something new that a pop-up, a strange thing that appears once a week, a year, or something more related to culture, more related to the arts, I think that will give it a bit more of a life for the existing one. For the future ones, I hope none of my clients are listening now, but for the future ones, I mean, shopping malls, I think it's a wrong idea. You know, it's really something that doesn't work. So hopefully we shouldn't do any more, and we should try and do what we discussed on the first question as well. You know, a bit more smaller scale villages within a city, so that you feel that you are part of a group, you are part of an area, and not go in a nondescript building that could be anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed. Anna, would you like to share your ideas? What can you foresee?
Yes, well, talking about stadiums, although I'm not a big fan, I think they are a great example of typology that will resist. After 10/11, everyone was talking of the risks of of these public gatherings. But however, I think that the experience of gathering, the conscience of sharing is the real point of going to a stadium. I don't think this will disappear, however sophisticated the broadcasting becomes. Actually, broadcasting suffers a lot if the stadium is empty. We've seen that. Much of the fun lays in knowing that there are many people present there. I think there will be solutions, but the typology will resist. About shopping mall as a typology is probably less obvious. I don't mind. I prefer shopping malls to stadiums, but I understand that it's been identified as a problematic model long before the pandemic. So, however, the urban mall had started to compare rather well with the suburban mall. I think they work better in a city that in these suburban areas. But the way we buy has been affecting shopping in the city, and it was transforming our retail experience in our cities already. But the success of the online shopping, of this Amazon model of buying, may be more a consequence of consumerism than just efficiency or convenience. I think the pandemic experience may create a realization that we can consume less and live better, that we probably can produce things within the city, even at home. How many new recipes of bread we found in the internet lately. So I don't know how many friends I have, they've been baking their own baguette. Well, this probably has made us think about it. And also the reclaiming of the streets for pedestrian may as well give a new life for the ground floor activities in the city. Not necessarily all of for shopping, but certainly interactive spaces. And certainly the pedestrianized 15-minute city will affect the scale of the shopping offer. Perhaps malls will transform into something closer to the 19th century's gallery, like probably what Mohamed was talking about, the experience of shopping in the street that some other countries or cultures have been using successfully for ages now. We don't know, we'll see. I agree with Juan that when you are in the storm, it's not easy to think about the storm, and we are still inside. So we have to wait and be very attentive to everything happening.
Thank you very much, Anna. And yes, I also been baking and doing pizza and everything, because at the end, this is is the perfect time to do so. Juan, as far as lighting design is concerned, what would be those changes in public spaces? What do you think? Juan, I think you are now.
I was trying to actually explain that I needed to come out of mute, but without pressing the right button. In terms of lighting, well, I think that we would live in a UV world soon, that we would be sanitized every time we go into a particular place. We just find the fact that UV light actually sanitize. I remember my barber, like when I was a kid, used to put his scissors in a UV sanitizer. And all of a sudden, I felt myself that I was going to be in that box. Now, it's not gonna change. There's not gonna be a massive change. The question is, when are we going to recover those places? We have lost 3 of our senses to COVID. It's funny, but it is true. So we have 5 senses. We are left with our sight, with our eyes, and with hearing. The other 3 get affected. We cannot touch anymore. Don't touch that. No, wash your hands if you. So you're restricted in sensorially speaking on a sensory. The smell and the taste is gonna get blocked by masks and things. So you are actually left with 2 of your main senses, but just 2 of them. The other 3 gets affected by all of this situation. Now, when are we going to recover the other 3 is the question. And I'm particularly desperate to recovering the touch one, because although I'm a very visual person and I adore, but that's why I'm a lighting designer and I adore things being revealed and getting through my eyes, the next thing that I do is touch them. So I actually, if you hold my hands back and I cannot touch or feel the things that I'm seeing, I actually getting half of the experience. Therefore, I'm more interested to recover the other 3 senses than to actually overrun the eye or the visual sense. Lighting will overrun that visual sense. So I can actually put lighting in an override, and this is the analogy of being inside this UV space to be sanitized, and at the same time it creates you a visual image of how that space would look like. But I don't want to be in that UV scenario. I don't want to be. I don't want to actually bombard people with lighting information or change their way things are revealed on an override manner because of this situation. I want to recover those spaces. I want to recover the sports arenas with the sound that actually people make when they are together. That's what Anna was saying that a second ago. She was saying it's not the same to actually have a stadium full of people or a stadium without people. And actually they're putting in the transmission of football now, they're putting sound of people shouting or getting excited about a particular play or not. So again, I'm more interested in recovering the other senses than actually putting an overdrive or trying to do something clever with lighting in order to be able to compensate for the lack of not having those experiences. I want to recover touch for my life. Smell and taste, it's something that I truly wouldn't be able to live without, but compromising them a little bit, especially if I can actually sit down around a meal and still taste it, that would be fine. So what do we do in terms of recovering that is what we all be trying to do very shortly, which is coming back to our normal, yeah, and then assess the situation to be able to see what we can do to contribute. I think to summarize, I learned two things here in terms of lighting. One is, or learned, I think I've reassured myself that having the connection with daylight is absolutely critical. Having the freedom to choose how you work and how you illuminate your space is absolutely critical. Being able to control is absolutely critical. And then having restricted our senses, now we have 2 or 3 good ideas of how to do some things in a different way, in a different manner. I was very excited about the opportunity of listening to every single one of us speaking from a different place in the world and seeing how under the same problematic we approach a solution. I think that shopping malls, for example, are going to change, but they were changing anyway. You need to actually give them more possibilities, and they need to be more playful, and they need to be more eventful spaces to be able to call people in, because as Anna was saying, everyone can go on Amazon and buy something and actually avoid the experience that Mohammed said that he didn't like, which is the crowded space for a crowded sake space. So there needs to be something like that. I was also thinking about what happens with a concert, for example, within a stadium. Here in the UK in summer, which is the time that the concerts happen, we have daylight until stupid o'clock at night. So 10:30, 11 o'clock, there is still daylight. Therefore, concert starts during daytime. Actually, there is no concerts at night in some way in the summer. Now, I haven't seen a single designer or band that actually uses daylight and sunlight in a meaningful way to plot their concerts. So being restricted of other senses gives you opportunities. Being restricted or not playing with artificial light gives you the opportunity of thinking differently. We need to take those opportunities and make sure that when we have the time to think, after we ride the storm, we can actually use them for having a new and more exciting world, which is I'm happy to live in that new and more exciting world myself.
Thank you very much, Juan. Very interesting. Professor Chanjaporn, would you like to add anything? What do you think those changes would be as far as lighting design is concerned?
Well, we are in a hot and humid climate. So shopping mall is more like a recreational spaces for us. And surprisingly, we're still building more of shopping malls, which to my surprise, in Bangkok, and I think in many places in Asia. But I think the trend we are seeing now is it's become like mixed use type of projects. So it's shopping malls with offices, with residential blocks, and all of that. And also in terms of design, I can see that it's become more open. Right, so it's there are more semi-open space, so incorporating landscape and daylight. Although here, I would say that people's preference for daylight is not as strong as in cold climate. And may I add to Regina's that she addressed the issue of like circadian lighting and daylight. And like the color temperature of light in, just go back to the offices space a little bit. We have in our lab, so we have, which we also use as our office. So we have a system that we can change color temperature. We can change, we have user control light on each workstation. So I think those things, people have freedom to choose light distributions. They can choose light intensity, but because here outside daylight is so strong and the sky is very bright, so you always have glare problems from daylight. In terms of color temperature, we would set it at say around 4,000. Because during daytime, we get, if we open the window, we open the blinds, so we have quite a bit of daylight coming in. So naturally, the color temperature change according to the daylight outside. So I would say, I would recommend, like here, I would recommend they use 4,000, because if they don't change the color temperature over the course of the day, right? So your color temperature and light intensity already changed according to the outside conditions. So I think that would, for us here, that, outside, I used to measure daylight here is like 6,500 K during 11, during daytime. And it can be 10,000 in the sunlight outside, 10,000 lux, 100,000 lux, sorry, 100,000 lux outside. And we have that maybe 50% of the year. So here we really have too much daylight. So to deal with daylight, we need, I think in tropical climate like here and, many parts of Asia, maybe the way that we deal with daylight need to be a bit more, need to be considered in you have to work more. It's not just the opening in the wall. For circadian, I think, and knowledge to the general public, I think now there are more awareness on this issue of light and health and circadian rhythm. But yeah, I agree that there should be more knowledge to the general public, and also designers and architects, like interior designer and architects. And I'm glad to see that these days interior designers and architects here, they are more aware of the importance of lighting design, and they are more aware of the effects of lighting, not just the visual effects, but also like the physical effects, the health effect as well. So I think that that's a good change. And now, after the crisis, I think the importance of using daylight, like natural light, integrating, the integration of architectural design and lighting design, I think it will become even more important. So I'm hoping to see, that trend. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Professor. Well, we are almost running out of time, so we are going to start with all the questions and answers, okay? Obviously, thank you very much to all your inputs. There we go. First question, I think, is for you, Juan. Regarding what Juan mentioned about the freedom of office spaces, who do you think is responsible to bring this freedom to the office space? Architecture can provoke it, or who is going to be in charge?
Right, I'm having my revolutionary hat here. It's about people, realistically. It's not about. I think that architects can contribute because they design the spaces, but they're not going to stop designing if a client actually tells them to build an office of certain characteristics, and they're not going to reinvent the wheel necessarily just on their own. I think it has to do with a change of culture. So I think it has to do with everybody contributing to a different way of working, to a more flexible way of working. I think that we can all contribute. I wouldn't put the burden just on the architecture, because it's not the architects that created the office. They just contributed to develop it. I think that the magic of the cladding of the office has kind of fallen down. And we need to actually have that magic to be able to dream again, to be able to be more productive. One of the things that actually impresses me is that the offices that are regarded as the most cutting edge offices are the ones that look like playgrounds. So if you go into actually, I don't know, Google's offices and you have a slide, and you go into Apple office and you can actually touch things and play around with things. And they are the cutting edge office spaces, and they're playgrounds. So I think that there is learning in that, in making sure that we go through a process in which we stop playing as kids, and we actually then come into the office as adults, and then we want to be kids again and start playing again. I think that circle is quite neat and quite clear. So we need to give ourselves the possibilities to grow up into the office, understand what we like of the office, and then start playing again. And it's everybody's responsibility. I think it's all of us. We all can contribute. Happy to contribute on the lighting bit.
Thank you, Juan. Next question. How do we see UVC light being utilized in office spaces? Anybody wants to answer this? Come on. Regina, you are there, you're looking at me.
It is a question that I have been asked, like, actually to research to our future projects. We just finished an office project today, and not today, recently, and one of the redesign aspects of the office is, okay, how do we redesign for COVID? How do we redesign an office space for a pandemic? So they're talking about, you know, one corridor, like the corridors of the offices being one direction only, and then another corridor coming the other direction. But I believe that everybody's very much keen to going back to normal. About light and UV, it is, UV can kill the bacteria, but I think that what we need to understand is how long do we need to be exposed? How long the light exposure needs to be there for the bacteria actually to be killed, for us to actually be sanitizing the space through lighting only. I know that there's some manufacturers have started to produce. One of them even was like patenting a wavelength to kill bacteria in hospitals, and so, but you cannot patent the sun. So it's like, how can you patent a wavelength? You know, just a color temperature, a color, just to sanitize the space. So how is this being addressed by the different manufacturers? One of them actually did mention that you cannot have a living being in the space, you know, when the lights are on. So can you have a plant? So these are things that, as Juan said, that like we're still in the eye of the storm. I think we still need to do a lot of research so that we don't harm ourselves more trying to fight something that we are currently, you know, like fighting. In the course of fighting COVID, like, are we going to harm ourselves? You know, if we just come up with sudden solutions, or how are we actually researching things and coming with proper answers? This is my questions that I have myself.
Thank you very much, Regina. Next question. Dr. Chanyaporn talked about recover the human scale on urban lighting. How this kind of lighting conception will face the current regulation? Because, well, the regulation might be slightly different from humanizing sort of urban lighting. Is there any conflict there?
Can I have the question again? The conflict between what? Sorry.
Sure. How, I mean, talking about recover the human scale on urban lighting, how this kind of lighting concept might face the current regulation from governments? Current urban plan are ready to implement this lighting kind of concept?
No, I think it's not a conflict, because well, at the moment, if you're designing, that's a recommendation. I think that's a recommendation if it's a, you know, pedestrian pathway, for pedestrian. So I don't remember, you need to have a minimum of, I don't know, 5 or 10 lux or something, right? But I think, but that might be when, if you're trying to provide less of horizontal illuminance on the floor, because, you know, it's nicer to have vertical illuminance, you know, for this facial recognition and, you know, for safety, for people, you know, when they're walking and they can see, you know, other people, you know, walking towards them, or, you know, so that might be a conflict, because you know, we did some field measurements in many countries, in France, like in Lyon, in Shanghai, the Ban in Shanghai. Actually, you don't need much. When you provide diffuse, you know, glare-free light, you only need, say, 2 lux on your face, right? But you know, when you have 2 lux on your face, on the floor, so, or near the floor, so if you have, like, I don't know, 6, 7, it can be even, you know, less than 10 lux, right? So that might be a conflict if if the regulations only stated, the horizontal illuminance on the floor, but not addressing the vertical illuminance. And, people need to understand that, at nighttime, well, of course, it depends on the context, how bright it is, but then normally you don't need much, to feel comfortable and feel safe, to move around in the city.
Okay, thank you very much. We move to the next question. Within the new reality, do you think people might decide to move out of the high populated or high dense population or urban areas? Mohammed, that's for you.
Not really. I mean, we sort of talked about that a bit, both Anna and myself. I think that there's many factors that are involved in that. So it really is. I don't see it. I mean, some people do. It depends. If you live alone, if you live, if you have a family, if they're old, the kids are old, or you can't. I mean, if you're single, you're not going to live in the countryside. It's normal. If you have teenage kids, also you will not live there. And obviously it depends on the people as well. But I think the cities are there, and they're going to grow more, and they're going to be more dense and more important as we get along, and the everything else will be rural. So we should find solutions to cure the illnesses that the cities have, but definitely not. I wouldn't consider at all living outside the city, and I think a lot of people share that thought.
Thank you, Mohammed. One more question we got here is how big data and lighting could interact? That's a very open question, but anybody wants to have a say? Yes. Juan?
I know. No, how can they interact? I think that we need to learn from the data that we are collecting. I work for an engineering company, and I have some of my colleagues within other engineering departments, the intelligent building department and other departments. They do collect data all the time. The most important thing is not collecting data, is interpreting that data, and for that you need a broader range of professionals to come in. We did an experience with an art piece on the banks of the river Thames here in London, across the river from St. Paul's Cathedral, in which we placed a head. It was called Head About Water. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the project, but we interconnect via Twitter the piece with people, and people could actually send their emotions to the piece, and the piece will react in color terms to whatever the people were tweeting. We collected that data, so it was a very interactive piece, and it's beautiful, and it was playful, and it's good, and we loved it. But the big thing is that we had a lot of data there, and the new regulations, obviously you cannot keep data in all its format, and therefore it gets restricted and it gets segmented. So we deleted all the bits that had to do with individuals, the information that had to do with individuals, but we kept the messages and the triggers, and we send that information to the Royal School of Psychology and Psychiatry. A woman called Sally Marlowe picked up that information, and they did informal research on that piece. And the good thing about that is that obviously in order to do formal research, this was to raise awareness on mental health, and it was really collecting data in order to actually get some information about mental health and the mental health of a particular city. The thing that what she did with that is she said to us, look, I cannot do formal research, because in order to do formal research, there is a series of regimented elements that I need to follow and procedures that I need to follow, but I can do informal research. And sometimes we do discover a lot by doing informal research on a particular subject. So in answering the question, how big data can be, or data can be used to inform lighting, there's many ways, but we need other professionals to help us interpret that. In the architectural world that we live in, it definitely architects, definitely engineers, but a lot of psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors and people that can give us, and scientists that can give us better information about ourselves. As we were talking about before, the the knowledge that we have about the technical subject that we deal with is limited. So when it goes to circadian rhythm, yes, I think that Mohammed wants to say something. It's limited, and therefore we need other professionals to help us develop that information and treat that information and use that information for a good cause.
Yes, please, Mohammed. Anything to add?
Sorry, I do want to cut you off, Juan.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think, I mean, I just want to jump in a bit. You know, data is not only for lighting, as Juan was saying. You know, data is critical in design. We were touching about how sustainable, how successful what we design or the use. You know, the most sustainable building, it's not the one that has a badge of LEED Platinum or passive house or whatever. It's the building that is used and it's used properly. You know, that there's millions of buildings around the world that are trophy buildings that are there. I mean, I'm shooting myself in the foot. You know, this is what we live off. But if the program and the use is right to given at the same time and developed and designed, this is a sustainable thing, and this can only be done through data. If we know what's happening now and in 5 years and in 10 years and 20 years in the life cycle of the building, that could all be incorporated from the design stage, and that is what makes a difference between sustainability and something sustainable and something not sustainable.
Thank you, Mohammed. More questions. This is referred to lighting designers. We were talking before about light and health, how important it is to modulate color temperature, but to which extent we should look at color temperature or more into the spectral power distribution? Who wants to answer that? Well, I think Professor Chanjapon, you were talking about shopping malls and yeah.
Actually, for circadian, it's put is in a simple term is the color temperature, but yes, actually you should look at spectral power distribution, because it's not necessarily that if you have 4000 K, you know, white light would have the blue peak, the peak for the circadian, you might have less than another light source with warmer color temperature. So yeah, but I think, you know, when we refer to color temperature, it's just it's easier to understand, because if you talk about 5000 K, assuming that it would have more blue spectrum. But recently, there are two regions of blue. I think the one that, you know, is good for its peak for circadian is, I think it's towards, it's turquoise blue, you know, so the other one is violet blue. So the better one is turquoise blue, right? So, but again, you know, the spectrum is only one thing. So you still have to consider spectrum, light intensity, and duration, and, you know, the time that you expose to those light. So it's not just, you know, modulating color temperature or spectrum of the light.
Okay, thank you. We've got one last question, and this is going to be for Anna. We have been seeing empty cities, and we have, I mean, by seeing empty cities, we have put into value how important is cities for people. What can we do to keep cities for people and not for cars, or, you know, what would you say?
I think we've seen them empty, and we've seen them empty of pollution and of noise, and we could hear birds singing, and it's been a fantastic experience. And I think everybody is kind of sad to lose this. So I think at least we have realized how good it would be to have cities so clean and with these blue skies and no pollution. So we've tried it. So I think that there's something good in it. It's like when you try something that's kind of utopic, and you think we are looking for it, but it's so complicated to get to it. But you've tried it for a few weeks, then it's very difficult to forget about it. as I said before, I think we were already in the good track, but not at the good pace. And probably this pandemic will push it a bit farther and help us establishing and some of the things that we knew we had to do, but doing it in a quicker way. And since we know how great our cities can be, we are going to work for it. So I'm not sure how long it will take, but that's for sure young people, and not that many young people as well, because young people were already aware of the kind of cities they want for their futures. But I think for the rest of the population, we've tried a little bit of these fantastic cities we've lived for a few days. So let's see how it evolves, but I think something has changed forever.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. We are running out of time, and it's been a very interesting conversation with a lot of inputs to think about. I would like to thank every one of you and all the speakers and all the audience from YouTube for your questions. So this is it. Ignacy, would you like to add anything?
Yes, sure. Just a few words to thank all of you. It's been really, really interesting. I mean, we do have so many notes to have reflections on it. And also, I'm sure that with the video that we will bring onto YouTube, and everyone will be able to see it. But just as I like to do, just summary or to also help to focus on issues. All of you has really raised things really, really interesting. Anna, at the very beginning, was launching the concept of this 15-minute series. And then there was a question from someone, and I was also thinking about the same, the lockdown that show us for only some weeks those cities that I think we would all love to have, cities for the people with vegetation, animals, because vegetation came crazy into the cities, at least here in our region. It was really crazy. And I think that a lot of people probably realize that those cities that we would love to have. So the thing is, what kind of decisions will be taken to go in that direction. Professor Tanya Porn talked about the lighting and that human scale. This is really an issue. The industry, I think that we are all, and we should all really work on that. Maybe not in certain areas, that there was also a question about that, but I think that we are going to have really serious challenges between regulations and that really human scale. So we hope that the community will be able to push and to force those changes needed. Okay. Regina was talking about how can we use the light to bring people together again. That's pretty cool. The concept, I really like it very much. And this concept again, it really came also last time in South America. The concept of democratizing the lighting, that not only a B2B business, a professional business, always, or when we bring it to to homes, to residential. In South America, they were talking a lot about it's just for the elite. It's just for some of them, that really can have access to this lighting design community to make, nice concepts for those projects. So how can we make it to really make it democratic and for everyone? And knowing today that the good lighting really have influences and effects to people and to our well-being. Juan, I don't know how many times you repeat freedom. That's great. We were talking about lighting architecture and you were talking about freedom, and yes, and I'm sure that there's a lot of freedom in those working spaces. And actually there was one question about responsibilities. Okay, we would love to have that freedom, but who should work to have that freedom? And yes, and how architecture really, because sometimes this freedom is broken because of the spaces, so how we all can work together. And again, a lot of more homework there for all of us. And Mohammed, I really like that concept of these shopping malls. It's not a good idea at the end. Yeah, it's an opinion. But then you follow this idea with this, with the illnesses that we have to cure the illnesses of the cities, because at the end, yeah, I kind of agree as a personal opinion that at the end, the big metropolis is where, economy, administration, so probably they will exist forever. But this concept of curing the illnesses of the cities brings also to the whole community, lighting, architecture, and a lot of more to really. So at the end, the main concepts were about this: proximity, mobility, human scale. So how important it's lighting and architecture that really can be involved in that. So again, thank you very much. Thanks, Juan, Professor Chanyapour, Mohammed, Anna, and Regina. Thanks a lot for participating. Again, really, really interesting. And to everyone who's still connected, Lam is still going to prepare our last digital table under this evolution and transformation of this society in a couple of weeks, and we will be launching it soon. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So I don't know. Okay, bye-bye.